Hello, my name is Karen, and I am an occupational therapy student at Kaiser University's MS-OT Bridge program. As part of my virtual fieldwork experience, I am creating weekly YouTube videos discussing various topics as well as holding debriefing sessions. On this week's debriefing session, I will be discussing pediatric therapy and its challenges it may present. The first question is, what do you find most challenging about providing occupational therapy in a pediatric practice setting? I typically work with geriatrics. However, when I was an occupational therapy assistant student, I did a rotation in the school system, and the most challenging aspect I found was the lack of carryover and the lack of time I had with the children. 9 out of 10 of the kids I saw, I only got to see once a week for 45 minutes, which was not a lot of time to implement any new strategies, and it was made even more difficult by the fact that many parents did not carry over the strategies that were implemented in our session. It was also sometimes tricky to have these strategies carried over in the classroom as well. So when the child was only getting to learn these strategies and practice them with me once a week for 45 minutes, there was not a lot of carryover and progress was very, very slow. This ties into the next question of what are some strategies that you can use to assist with the challenges that you previously mentioned. So some strategies could be trying to come up with a written handout to give to the parents as well as the teachers. Something to keep in mind, I think, is the length of the handout you make. If it's too wordy or you're trying to start too many things each week, the odds of this being carried over with the child outside of therapy is very minimal. So making sure that I just pick maybe one goal each week, if not only one goal per month of something to work on. For instance, if we're working on handwriting, make sure the child holds their pencil like this and does 5 sentences, whatever my homework assignment is for the week, each day. This is something kind of short that can hopefully be addressed by parents in the evening without taking too much time from their personal lives, and also something that the teacher can somewhat keep an eye on as far as like their pencil grip. Something else to work on or to keep in mind is that since it is a child, they're not going to be doing this on their own outside of therapy, whereas an adult you can give a home exercise program to. Kids aren't going to be initiating this on themselves. So maybe if I make a reward system for them, such as if you practice this and get your parent to sign off on it, you can get a treat during your next therapy session next week. That kind of gives the child an incentive to also help advocate for themselves as far as carrying over the therapy strategies outside of therapy. The third question is, what is the diagnosis that you have heard about that you are interested in providing occupational therapy services for? I would say autism. This is definitely the most common diagnosis that we hear about in school. Also, surprisingly, I did not see a lot of children with autism during my pediatric rotation last time around in school. So I'm definitely very interested in treating this in the future. I think it is so interesting to see how children with autism can present on totally different ends of the spectrum. So you can have someone who is very, very high level and verbal and just is, struggling a little bit socially with social participation, to the opposite end of the spectrum of nonverbal, very low level, physically aggressive behaviors when they're seeking for sensory feedback. So that wide variety and not really knowing what to get is somewhat intimidating, but also I find very interesting, and I think it's something that once you get practice with, it would be really rewarding to be able to work with children in that field. The fourth question is, what is the diagnosis that you have heard about that you are least interested in providing occupational therapy services for, and why? Not necessarily a full-out diagnosis, but children with ADHD or oppositional defiant disorder. This was something I had not considered until actually the past 2 weeks in this class, watching videos with a child who was struggling with attention issues. She was running around the therapy room. It was very hard for the therapist to redirect her, and this was something that I naively had not considered before. Just watching the videos, I was beginning to get frustrated myself on wanting her to sit down and focus. And I realized that was not a good sign. If I was getting frustrated watching the videos, it would be much more challenging in person. So that is something that I hate to say not interested in or least interested in, but I think that will be most challenging for me as a therapist personally, is being able to find ways to redirect the children without getting upset myself, and being able to harness that boundless wild energy into actually working on what I want them to work on. So that would definitely be a challenge in itself, which I think also ties in with the autism. Sometimes children can have attention issues there too. So very challenging with pediatric children, I'm learning these past couple weeks. Thank you so much for joining me on this week's debrief, and I will see you next week.